Hello everybody out there in YouTube, and welcome to another Trolley Tuesday. Today we're going to be looking at Dallas Railway and Terminal 186, or more commonly known as the Green Dragon. So for anyone wondering, this model is made from an Atlas Industries O-scale trolley, more specifically a Los Angeles Transit trolley. You know, it was in the salad bowl livery, I think. And the poles on it were broken, so I kind of made my own. They look very similar to the old school Lionel trolley poles, which is kind of interesting. And it was a deck-roofed car, so I went and I used some styrene sheets here and basically made it look like it had the turtleback style roof. And for anyone wondering, yes, car 186 in real life is a turtleback trolley. And why does it have that name? Well, fairly simple. The car body is actually higher than the cabs. The cabs are stooped lower on purpose, so that way you don't have to basically jump up into them. You can just walk into them and then you step up and then you're inside the car body. To my knowledge, there were only ever 3 or 4 transit companies that ever used the turtleback style cars, with I believe the first ones being in Chicago, the second ones being in Boston, and then the last ones being in Dallas. But anyway, the more iconic turtleback cars are the Dallas ones, mainly because they're the only ones I believe that still exist at the moment. So anyway, because the cabs are stooped lower than the body, it would give the impression that the cab was like a shell of a turtle. So they started calling them turtleback cars. And I believe there's 5 of these cars that exist. There's 186, which is the only one of the 5 that's in regular revenue earning service. And then there's, I believe it's 434. That's the other operating one, but it's at the Seashore Trolley Museum in Maine, which, again, you can go and ride. This one you can go and ride at the McKinney Avenue Transit Authority. And let's see, the other ones are all in storage by the McKinney Avenue Transit Authority. I believe those are cars 343, 189, and 183, I think. Those are the other ones. And I think it's either 343 or 183, I think, if it's 183. One of those is a stretch turtleback. There were 26 of these cars that were 13 windows long. This model incorrectly is 11 windows long. Most turtlebacks only had 10 windows. But the 13 window ones were a little bit longer, as you could probably tell. And only one of them exists out of the many that were made. And they were exclusive to Dallas, which is kind of interesting. And these cars were in service from the 1910s all the way up until the closure of the DR&T. Very few of these turtlebacks were actually retired. I think only a handful of them were, and they were mostly sold off to private individuals. Either that or they were used as parts. There is footage of the DR&T donating car 434 to the Seashore Trolley Museum, and they loaded it up at the T&P crossover in Dallas. I don't know if that section of track still exists, but I do know where the location of it is. Anyway, onto the model. Again, it's entirely hand-painted, and it's a bump-and-go car, so it's got the bumpers, and it's got a lit interior and operating headlights, which is fairly nice. And I am going to show this car running very soon, so don't worry. It's not going to be like 122's video where I link it somewhere else. You actually get to see this bad boy run for once. So yeah, I've actually ridden on 186 in real life. If it wasn't for the fact that the fronts of the cars drooped, and if they were level, they basically would have been just like the cars in New Orleans on the St. Charles line, the Pearlie Thomas cars. That's how similar they are. Not to mention they has the flippable seats, which is pretty cool. But 186, I believe, has a particularly special history in the fact that it was retired early, as in it was retired in the early 40s, 1943, I believe. And it was sold to a farmer who used it as a hay bale barn. And it stored 175 bales of hay before it was found and bought by Ed Landrum, one of the two founders of the McKinney Avenue Trolley. And his wife, Kate, and him rebuilt the car body. And it went on display at the, I think it was the Texas or Dallas Baseball Museum. I can't remember which, but it was only there for like 2 or 3 years before the museum closed. And they had to knock the roof down and crane it out. And there's a picture of it where it looks like this, just in the air, just like this, which is kind of funny. And of course, this became MATA's third operating car when they got car 180, or no, it was car 369, and it came with a bunch of spare parts. It came with spare controllers and trucks. So they put all of that into this car body, and it works. So it technically has the wrong trucks. Turtleback cars are supposed to have, it's this really strange arrangement. I believe that was originally patented by Brill. But it's a small little guide wheel followed by a regular motorized wheel, then a regular motorized wheel, and then a small trailing wheel for operating. 186 has all the same sized wheels, and they all have the potential to be powered wheels. I think there's only 2 motors on it, though, if I'm correct. So it's actually sitting a lot lower than it should, technically speaking. It's supposed to be a bit higher off the ground. The one in real life, obviously not the model, but, you know. And a lot of people ask if that car was named the Green Dragon by McKinney Avenue. It wasn't. The turtlebacks most commonly were seen around SMU, if you know where that is, and there was a line that linked up to SMU, and a lot of students rode the streetcars. And the story goes that they were thinking of pulling this car from service, but then the students over at SMU found out, and they all voluntarily rebuilt the car for the company. So they went and said, hey, you know what, since you rebuild it, you get to name it, because the DRNT ever named any of their equipment, unless it was for a special occasion. And they decided to call the car the Green Dragon, because that's what they called all of these cars. They called them Green Dragons, which is interesting. So it's the only car by the McKinney Avenue Transit Authority that I believe was never named by them. So it was the only car that had a name before being acquired, which is kind of cool. And that was back in the 20s. This car was built back in 1913. So yeah, and for a brief period of time before the major merger that formed the Dallas Railway Terminal, most of these cars ran under what would have been the Dallas Consolidated Traction Company, I think, or Dallas Consolidated Electric Street Railway, one of the two, which is pretty cool. And the paint scheme it's currently in is the pre-war scheme. The post-war scheme has like a weird chevron at the front and on the sides, but more or less is the same colors. It's just got a different shade of green. This is more of a Kelly green. The other green for the post-war livery is more of a mint green. So yeah, let's get it running. And here we are, back on the old trolley loop that I set up a while ago. It's looking a little bit more barren now since I've been using all the other stuff on the other streetcar layouts. But let's see how he does. Oop. And I think that's about as good as we're going to get today. Thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you in the next Trolley Tuesday video.